From birthing suites to the birth of a magazine. This is the journey of today's episode with my special guest, Nicole George. For more than 18 years, Nicole was a nurse and nurse manager in neonatal intensive care units. So she saw a lot of birth. She cared for a lot of new mothers and babies. And in that, not only did she see this beauty of birth, she saw how sometimes the women or even the health practitioners were silenced. And this ended up leading to the birth of Sovereign magazine. So, Sovereign magazine has this intention of giving women a global platform to tell their sovereign story and share their intuitive ways with the world. Nicole desires to be a part of breaking the patriarchy through her conscious brand by allowing women to trust their inner voice and embrace themselves as they are stepping into their power. Now, what I love about today's episode is this. You get to hear how Nicole has gone through this process herself, listening and trusting her inner voice, which led her to the birth of Sovereign magazine, and what it actually means for her and other women to step into their power. So, my friends, get ready because we're about to go through that birth canal and birth something brand new in this amazing conversation with Nicole George. Welcome to You Are the Magic, the podcast that is supporting women across the world to claim their magic within. I am your host, Deb D, and it's my absolute delight to share with you some of the amazing women that I know who are living big lives and making magic happen. They will be inspiration for you. I'm also going to be sharing with you some solo episodes with a little bit more about my story, the magic that I'm activating, and how you too can ignite and activate the magic within you. Because I believe it to be true. I do believe that you are the magic. And I do believe that it's time for women to reclaim our magic, our intuitive leadership, and our unique gifts and talents so that we can be the wave of change that we know the world needs now. So join me in connecting to the magic in you, the magic of women, and let's share just a little piece of how that magic can be activated today. Nicole, welcome to the magic stage. I am so amazingly pleased that you are here to share not only your story today, but the story of Sovereign, which I'm also a member and a part of. So I cannot wait for everybody else to hear about this. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be able to share my story today.
Yes, and I know it's going to be a story that at least one woman today really needed to hear. I can just feel that before we even begin, before we even get in there, I can feel that. So thank you for continuing to share your story. I think it's really important that we do that as women.
Yeah,
But,
go ahead.
yeah, I just want to begin here. Like, what is the magic that you make and create in the world?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say was the whole purpose of me creating Sovereign really goes back to my story.
Mm,
Um, and it begins with women being silenced. So I was a nurse and nurse manager for 18 years in a neonatal intensive care unit. And I often saw the women who are giving birth trying to bring their baby earthside. And, they were trying to use their body and their intuition to birth their baby and being told that they couldn't do it that way or perhaps it was wrong. And really, being asked to stuff that intuition, or even perhaps the medical team, the nurses and the doctors, really having some intuition about something and the medical staff saying, well, that's not how we do it. We have policies and procedures. And as an empath and intuitive, I ultimately reached burnout because I knew there were other ways. There were other ways. And so the whole purpose and the magic that I want to give to the world is the global platform that Sovereign is we want to uplift women so that they can share their intuitive ways and sovereign story with the world to help shift the collective and bring awareness to a new way to do things that isn't wrong.
And it's all right.
Yes.
Yes. So can we just I want to be able to feel it, Nicole, because I think it's really important to really connect to the feelings, not just the themes of stories. So is there a particular memory you have of being with a woman birthing or being with another health practitioner where this voice, this intuitive voice and knowing was silenced?
Yeah. Actually, I do. There was this little baby. Her name actually was Miracle. I think there's plenty of miracles, so that's not breaching any HIPAA violations.
Mm,
But I was taking care of her for several days, so several days in a row, and I was looking at her going, something is not right. And I bent down and I looked at her chest because they're sitting in little isolates. So I worked in the NICU part of it, so where we
mm,
cared for the babies, the ICU. And I looked at her chest, and the left side of her chest was just ever so slightly more elevated than the other one. And I said, that's where her PIC line is. I bet you she has a clot. So I went to the doctor, who happened to be male. It didn't really matter. We're all constructed to be a certain way in the medical field. So it didn't matter that he was a male, but he was. And I said, something's not right. I think she has a clot in her arm. Her axilla is what we call it. And he said, babies don't get clots. And I
mm.
said, I'm sorry. Come look, at least come look for me, please. So he did. And he could see the it was so slight, the swelling. And so he said, I'll order an ultrasound just to pacify you. And so he
Hmm.
did. And ultimately, the baby had a clot. And the baby was actually shipped to a higher level of care. We were a level 3, and a level 4 is a really high level of care because they had to put the baby on what's called heparin therapy, which is a clot medication. And they almost had to practically write the protocol for it because they don't see it in neonates. So that's a perfect example of how intuition for me really kicked in, and I had to be that advocate for that baby because had that dislodged, she would have either had a stroke or a heart attack. So she truly is a miracle to this day.
Yeah, and her gift is continuing because it's a part of the inspiration for you. Something that I remember really clearly when I was giving birth to my son Sage, I was in Australia. I had an induced birth because of my thyroid condition and other things. And so I already had, to me, what felt like maybe not the birth that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But I was accepting of that. I just wanted my son to come through healthy and well. I mean, he was very stubborn. He took a couple of days to come through, Nicole, a couple of days. It's also, I think,
Right.
when you induce the baby, they're like, I don't know if I was ready. Like, this is on my timeline.
Yes. Yes.
But I remember being in the birthing ward, and I was in my own room, but there
Mm-hmm.
was 3 other rooms on this floor.
Mm-hmm.
And deep into the first day, we start to hear this singing. And I'm there with my birth partner, Marty, and my son's godmother, Julie. And we start to hear this amazing singing of many voices, many women's voices. And it's not in a language that we know, but it sounds like this amazing chorus. It sounds like we've just turned up to a concert. And when one of the nurses come in, we are like, what is going on? Right? Because you go out into the hall and all the doors are closed, so you don't know what's actually happening. And
Mm-hmm.
she says, oh, there's an African woman who is birthing, and her women are with her, and they are all calling the
Mm-hmm.
baby in. And so
Mm.
they were singing this baby in, and we're sitting there as the three Australian white women going, wow, we feel like we need to do something. But it was so beautiful to see this freedom of voice
Yeah.
of these, well, not to see it, to hear it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what we decided is like, well, let's join in with that. Like, let's feel this with the women. And, and it became a bonding moment for us in the birthing room. And sure, Sage was like, well, I'm still not ready. I'm coming out in a couple of days.
Yeah.
But it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it opened up this world for me of like, wow, there's so many ways we can birth. There's so many ways we can bring life
Yeah.
into the world. And as a woman, up until that point, I was only ever told there's one way, and it's what the doctor tells you.
Exactly. And actually, I interviewed somebody for the magazine a few weeks ago, and she said to me, she's a doula, and she said, often I get the question, how can you be a birthing doula and you've never had kids? And she says
Mhm.
back, how can you go to a male OBGYN? He's never birthed a baby, but you trust him. I'm a woman. I have the same parts as you.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfect because we have this constructed reality of what it should or shouldn't look like, right? And like you, my daughter took several days to get here. I also had to be induced because I was so late. My guest date was so late. But everything that I didn't want to happen happened
Mm.
because we were constructed to be that way. I mean, it's kind of a cascade of events, if you will. If you're lying in bed, you're going to need more help medically
Yeah.
because you're not moving around and all of this. And she had many complications, but I had to be her advocate as well. That's actually another memory of mine where I did start to tap into my intuition. At that time, there was a protocol that if mother and baby or together had three separate symptoms, then the baby needed to go to the NICU to get antibiotics because if your water was broke for a certain amount of time, the risk of infection is greater, right? And I said,
Mhm.
well, I only have 2 out of 3. You're not taking my baby. My baby is very strong. I know she is. And so I was right, but it was a situation where had somebody not known that protocol, their baby might have been whisked away. And so it's not a dig on the medical field because there is a time and a place for it. But I think we definitely need to trust our intuition, ask questions. My best word that I can give everybody is remain curious. Ask why you're being asked to do these things, or if your gut is telling you something, keep asking questions, um, that's how I get the answers, is I keep asking questions. And so that's really where it's important for you to tap into your intuition, because that is the truth. And I
Mm.
just like to share one more story. It's a really short one
Please.
because I really want to advocate for people. So I won't reveal who it is because I don't know if he wants everyone to know this, but somebody in my family had cancer. And I became his healthcare advocate because it was very hard to navigate this cancer. It was a very challenging cancer. And it was 6 months of planning to remove this cancer. That's how complicated it was. And I ultimately said to him, what do you want to do? Because we had 2 options: surgery, well, really 3: surgery, chemo, radiation, or nothing.
Mm.
And it came down to, he said, I don't want surgery. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I said, that's what we're doing. We're not doing surgery.
Yeah.
We're doing chemo and radiation. And guess what?
Mm.
He's cancer free today.
Oh, blessings.
So it's a
Yes,
perfect
it's this.
example.
Yeah, and it is this knowing, and I think you say, and I also say, we can tap into our knowing, into our intuition, but our intuition is also tapping in with us.
Mhm.
It's also coming to us in like symbols and stories and different ways that maybe we don't understand. Because I'm now remembering, as you're sharing these stories, When I was birthing, I had these repeated visions that would come. And it was 3 different women. One was a woman alone in a room, sitting on a bed with a lot of blood on the bed, and she was crying. Another woman was a woman being like birthing, but it was like in an army tent, like I was in a war, like it was a war zone or something. And then there was a third woman who was also birthing, and she was there with other women. And I kept seeing like these 3 different scenes of birthing, and they were really different, and they had different feelings, and they kind of just kept coming. And I was like, I don't know who these women are. But as the contractions got stronger, the visions got stronger. Like, and I didn't have to call for them. They were just there. They just kept coming with the contractions. And
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of birth, so I'm like, I don't even know what's going on, right? I don't have the space for the curiosity then, or to connect to anything other than, this is strange. But then in the days after the birth, when I just kind of relaxed and breathed into it, and I was like, I'm really curious about those women, what my intuition told me is if those women are me.
Your past
That was,
lives?
yeah, my past lives, different times when I was birthing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, how
Mhm.
amazing am I? How
Mhm.
amazing are women
Mhm.
in like the years and the generations and the lives that we have continued to birth. And what it showed me in that is every birth story is going to be unique.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
unique to the woman, isn't it?
and it doesn't have to be just birth, like giving birth to a child. It can be
Mm.
the rebirth of you. And that's one of the things that I love to tap into with Sovereign is that, our tagline is that we are for every woman who wants to trust her inner voice and stand in her power. Okay.
Mm.
And so I didn't know about this world of intuition and everything until about almost 5 years ago. I just lived the whole constructed life. I went to school, I got a good job, I made over $200,000 a year. I had a pension, I had the cars, I had the white picket fence house with the husband and the dogs and the kid. But I wasn't happy. And so this is where I really, really, really want to help shift the collective into happiness. And part of that also for me, so that's sharing women's stories. So that's one part of Sovereign. But the other part of Sovereign is proving that I can help shift the patriarchy too. So I'm here in the US, we have a team in the UK, we have the team in the Philippines now. And so all of them work in complete alignment. They don't have any set hours, they don't have any set days. They work when they want. They have unlimited sick leave and paid leave because I'm here to prove you can have a conscious brand and happy employees at the same time. And it all goes back to how can we shift the collective to trusting their inner voice and standing in their power. We can do that by creating awareness around it. And that's how we do it. When you have people who want to come into a community that have like minded values and share a common vision, then you can move mountains, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what I really want to do, and that's the magic that I want to bring to this world is to break down all the constructed realities, whoever has them, all the patriarchal realities, and redefine everyone's story, reframe it, whatever it needs to look like.
Mm. And what did it look like for you in that transition from I have this constructed life, on paper it looks like I should be happy, but actually I'm not.
Yeah.
What were those key moments for you that shifted you from that place
Yeah.
to the building of Sovereign?
It's a very hard place to be. I'll share that with you because my husband and I have been together for 24 years. So at that time it was 20. And I we both lived that constructed life. Now he's totally different. He gets it, but he had to come along with me. But there
Mm.
was a point at which I said to him, honey, I don't know what this is, but I'm choosing this. That basically meant I'm not choosing that constructed reality anymore. I'm choosing this. And he said back to me, "You've never steered us wrong. I believe in you." And
Mm,
so I did. I left my job and I didn't know what I was going to do. We had a lot of money in savings, and that's what we lived off of. And he went back to work because he was a stay at home dad. Because I made enough money, he didn't have to work. He stayed home down for almost 11 years. And he went back to work, and that gave me the opportunity to birth Sovereign. And so it was a lot of holding the faith and doing a lot of inner work, because it's not just about that one moment. It's many, many connected moments.
absolutely.
And it's also looking at your shadows and doing the inner child work. So much of my self-confidence was tied into, I actually have two mother wounds, and there's quite a few articles in Sovereign about this if anybody wants to read them. I did a series about it. Um, but I have my birth mom, who was in my life for 12 years. And then I have my stepmom, who I have had to step away from, basically because of the immaturity in her parenting style causes more disruption for me than it does helping. And that
Mm,
was a really hard choice, because I not only had to mourn a mother wound, my primary mother, but the secondary one too, who raised me. And so when you start to go into this world, I always give people a warning and say, the work never ends.
no,
I'm
it
I'm
doesn't.
working on myself every day, but you have to find those moments where you're ready to step into your sovereignty, into your power. And so it was really choosing. I mean, I remember this one day walking down my street outside. My dad has crossed over the rainbow, and I talk to him often because he's an entrepreneur. And I'm walking down and I'm like, Dad, I want this so bad. I want to be an entrepreneur so bad. And And he just told me, you just have to be patient. It's not on your timeline.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, because we want the quick money or the quick this. Not everything's going to be quick. And so if you can call upon people, people who have passed over, or your guides or your spirit guides, they'll really trust you. I believe in angel numbers very strongly.
Mm.
So trust those as well. But that pivotal moment was that day. And I didn't know at the time numerology, but it was on November 11th, 1111.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these things are happening for us all the time. Like the little synchronicities, the numbers, the messages. And this is a part of the beauty of, like you say, like it is work. You have to continually turn up for yourself. But then also, spirit and the universe and the divine also turns up for and with you.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's work, but it's also the possibility of awe and wonder and delight that you also get when you're on the journey of like really understanding yourself. Like I call it understanding your magic, like not only connecting to your intuition, but also connecting to who am I? What are my strengths? What do I actually really want when I turn off the noise of what the world tells me I should be? What do I actually really want?
Yes.
And you don't have to answer all of those questions.
No.
You can wait and listen, and you can be told. It can be
Yeah.
shared with you. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned probably the most over the last 4 years is the waiting, the unknown. Sitting in the unknown is really painful. It's
Mhm.
really hard sometimes to trust, to lean into trust. But when you do trust, that is where the magic happens, because you're not controlling, you're not constructing. It's just going to happen. And, it's going to happen in your highest timeline. And I also have found so many times through my life and through, people in my life, the bad things are good things too. And I think we often forget that often, and now my husband gets it. He was telling me the other day, he said, "Oh my gosh, there's all this chaos at work." I said, "They're shifting energy for you, honey. They're shifting energy." And sure enough, we found out later why. But that's a perfect example of where you can just not understand why there's so much chaos in your life. But if you trust that that energy is being re alchemized and things moved out of the way and pushed out of the way to get you on the right path, then it's a whole new way and perspective to look at things that are happening not to you, but for you.
Yeah, and I think that I absolutely agree. And I also believe we aren't supposed to do these journeys alone. Like, yes, it's our journey, like what I'm here to learn, what my heart here is to experience and expand. It's absolutely unique to Deb D and also to you, Nicole. But it doesn't mean that we need to be on the journey on our own. And this is one thing that you and I have in common, is that we gather women together. So in Big Life Magic, we have the Big Life Magic Makers, which is the community for women across the world who are ready to say, I am freaking magical. I am going to call it in. I do want to hang out with soul sisters. I want to explore what's possible for me, which is what we do in the virtual community. And you also do this with Sovereign, because I'm a member of Sovereign, because I will be featured on the magazine September 2025 full moon issue. Everybody cannot wait. But
We
there's
can't
women
wait.
across the world who you have called together to say, we want to hear your sovereign story.
Yeah.
So can you share with me a little bit about how you started to build this community of sovereign? Because, you know, you're speaking to your father and you want to be an entrepreneur, and Nicole,
Yeah.
you are. And you've
Yeah.
also created this beautiful universe where it's on everyone's timelines. It's across the world. It's expansive. It's not the way we would normally build a
Yeah.
business or a community. So just share a little bit around what you want to share about that, the next
Yeah.
part of your journey.
I really believe actually Sovereign chose me. um, I was given her name, so that came in a download. Um, and it was through a human design course that I took that I really, really figured out. Because initially I was a coach for a while. I love connecting with women and giving advice. That's part of my natural nursing background, right? You give a lot of advice.
Mm.
Um, and so that seemed really natural for me. So I did that for a while, but I realized pretty quickly, although I was good at it, it didn't feed my soul because I'm not supposed to be in the limelight. So having this interview is actually pretty rare for me. I don't actually come front and center in the business because I'm a behind the scenes kind of girl. I'm not supposed to be the face of my business. I'm supposed to be uplifting other women. And so that's when it kind of hit me. I said, I love sharing women's stories. I love talking about the products they have, or my husband always calls me the greatest car salesman because I'm like, oh, did you read so and so's book? It's so good. And I'm always promoting people. Okay. And so it just comes naturally to me because I'm your biggest cheerleader, but I
Mm.
don't need to be the face of the business. So that's when the magazine came to me. I was like, oh, that fits really well with my human design and who I am. And when you step into that, then the magic starts happening, doors start opening. It happens really easily. And that's when I feel there was a huge shift. So our first magazine was in September of 2022, but it took a while for us to build all of that. So we really started in about April of 2022. Um, but then it was the audience who shifted it because we were
Mm.
running a traditional model, right? You're featured once, that's the end of it. And the audience was like, I have more questions. I want to know more. I don't like this one and done thing. It doesn't fit. It doesn't tell me enough about the person. And I said, this is yes, I love this. So that's when we came up with the 4 issue model. every woman featured in Sovereign after a certain period of time, I can't remember the exact date, gets featured 4 times. And that's because we want you to tell your story from wherever you want to begin it to now. And you're going to share how you became to standing in your sovereignty, right? I had this trial and tribulation at the beginning, and this is how I alchemized it, and this is me now. And that really gives them the chance to get to know you so that you can share your story. So it's cathartic for you and it's really engaging for them. And so I listen to the audience. I
Mm.
listen to the contributors as to what they need and want. Because for me, Sovereign has her own energy. She often
Mhm.
talks to me, like, for example, I don't know, maybe August of last year, I kept telling the team something was going to happen in January. Don't know what it is, but I've gotten the download. Sure enough, we had a shift in the team, so on and so forth. So she often talks to me and I get the downloads, but she really is kind of her own entity. And so I just trust in her because she chose me.
Mm. I absolutely align with that. Big Life Magic has its own entity. And last year, when I was needing to realign for myself, and I was in the listening, but I was also in, when you kind of like you listen yourself or talk yourself into a corner and you can't quite see what's possible, you need to kind of break that out a little bit. So I chose to go on my own journey of like reimagining. And so I created a digital resource called Tap into the Magic of Your Business. And it's doing what you just spoke about, because for you and I, because we're intuitives and we're curious and we play, this is the kind of stuff that we can do.
Mm.
But for everybody listening, they may be like, well, that sounds like fun, but I don't know how. It feels too hard to cross that bridge into the how. So I created Tap into the Magic of Your Business so that people could meet their business in a meditation and have a direct conversation with their business. Like I do it every quarter now. I have like a important meeting with my business. Big Life Magic and I meet in meditation and I say, what do you want me to know now? What can I not see? What's possible for us? And it's always in alignment. It's always what I need to receive, not what I want all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes my business tells me slow down or focus on the data. You're not actually looking in the right direction. It's absolutely what I need. But what you bring forward is that, like, yes, we can listen to our businesses or what we're creating, but we can listen to spirit and we can listen to the people we're in community with. Like I love that there's been this co-creation of the contributors and the audience, because that's where the magic really is, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's not only up to us. It's like if we can open to be supported, to listen, then that's where the fullness of creations, I think, can come in. And the other thing that you brought forward, which I really want to highlight for everybody listening, because we all have it. Tune into where your strengths are and just love them. Like you're so clear. Like, I'm not the face of the magazine. I'm not in the limelight. That's not my strength. Great, which means it makes space for other women
Yeah.
who their strength is to be there. And when we're all in where our strengths are, that's alignment to me. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think it's also a clue for people if you're not quite sure. Like if you're listening to Nicole and you're like, I feel like I'm in the structured life that I'm not happy. You don't have to know where you're going. You didn't know where you were going, Nicole, but you
No
do.
clue.
You can start to tap into intuitive knowing and curiosity and connect with your strengths. Like, what am I good at?
Yeah.
And just start to expand that.
I think not everybody would maybe perhaps know what their strengths are, maybe by the label, but I think you know intuitively what feels aligned. Like I knew every time I'd get on my Zoom coaching calls, I'd be like, "Ugh, here we go again." You know what I'm saying? But then once I was on the call, I was energized and I loved it because I love being in community.
Yeah.
but I absolutely hated being on video. And so I do all of my calls when I hear women's stories who want to be featured in the magazine. I do them by regular traditional phone call because guess what? I can be my authentic self and they can be their authentic self. Do you know how many times women are like, I'm just doing the dishes? I'm like, great. That means you're comfortable. I want you to be
Mm,
yourself.
mm,
Yes, we are a professional organization. Yes, but you're showing up with who you are, which is the busy mom who just got done with her workday and needs to get the dishes done while she's interviewing for a magazine. I love that. I
yeah.
love that. I love when people can show up who they truly are, as who they truly are, because ultimately, when we're not our authentic self, we're not living in alignment. And when we're not living in alignment, that means we're living out of alignment. So, how many things are getting derailed because we're not connected into who we truly are? Doesn't necessarily mean you're missing things, but it means that they might come to you at a later time when you could be tapping into them now. And so that's what I love is I love the more that I get to know myself and I get to know the team and how they work, like when we have a new team member, I ask them, how do you like to communicate? Do you prefer texting? Do you prefer voice notes? Do you prefer emails? What do you prefer? How do you receive information best? Do you prefer a Zoom meeting? And they're always like, oh, I'm not sure. Or sometimes they know right away. And that's because so many of us don't know our own preferences because we've been conditioned. You got to do them all. You've got to do
Mm,
the email. You've got to do the texting. You've got to do the voice notes. You got to do the Zoom meetings. No, we don't do that here at Sovereign. We have one way of communicating usually. We have very minimal meetings. It's amazing. You can build whatever you want when you live in alignment. And I think so many people are afraid to step out of the norm or the constructed reality. And also, I wouldn't say necessarily afraid. They just don't know. They
they just don't.
I didn't know how to run a business any other way than how I ran the NICU, right? But I do
Mhm,
draw upon that knowledge now and I've deconstructed most of that now. But I didn't know how to run it any other way than the NICU in the beginning. And I think that's why in the beginning, I was running everything like a regular magazine, and then I was like, "No, we're different. It doesn't feel
mm,
right.
mm,
We are different." And so it's okay to be different. It's okay to tap into who you truly are. It's okay to tap into what you want to be, and it's okay to be unique and different.
mm. And it's okay to take your time in figuring that out,
Yes.
because for some women, they've lived years of their life not knowing that. Like, there's so many women who I work with who they haven't had an authentic connection to their body in
Yeah.
years, let alone their intuition. And so what I invite is, it's a grand adventure and you get to choose. You get to start to tap into your feelings and your knowing and explore. And maybe you do want to do a course on intuition, or maybe you do want to read some of these women's stories in the Sovereign magazine, or maybe you want to get your human design chart done or explore astrology and the moon. And there's so many ways that you can begin to build a relationship with yourself. And that's what I invite women to do, is like, open up to what feels fun. What are you curious about? What are you interested in? And just start to follow that. And then it starts to unfold for you.
It does. You know, there's this really amazing book, and I do put a caution on it because it really is for somebody who's kind of a little bit further on in the journey. But if you're really interested, go for it. It's The Presence Process by Michael Brown. In that book, the whole premise of the book is we are so tuned into feeling better, but not
Mm,
very good at getting better at feeling.
mm,
And so it's a meditation process. It's 10 weeks long and you do it 3 times. The team and I have done it together. It's amazing. We're going to be starting another round of it in September. But what it is it's helping you integrate getting better at feeling so that you can have that fun again. Because when we're holding all of these stories or constructed realities, and we're not integrating the feelings around them, whether it's enoughness, worthiness, shame, blame, whatever it is, we are blocking ourselves from getting to the fun. We don't realize we're doing it. And so that's a very advanced path, if you will. But if somebody's ready, you could try it. You can try it. It's a very dedicated 10 weeks. It's just meditating, but he writes how you meditate and all of that. It's amazing. But that's a tool that you can use to help guide you towards the fun if you don't know where to start.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and I think this starting with what am I curious about? What am I interested in? Start talking to other women. Again, it's coming to me. It's like listen to the Sovereign podcast, listen to this podcast with the women's stories, and just start to kind of unlock and breathe deeper. Because I think the other thing that women need is we need to recognize that so much of our experience in the world feels unsafe.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we need to breathe deep so we can calm our nervous systems. Because this is something I've recently realized in my work is there's a lot that I do with women around tapping into their intuition, understanding the anatomy of their intuition, starting to turn up the volume of their intuition. I've taught lots of masterclasses in the Big Life Magic Makers. But then I heard this repeated message from women. And the message was, but that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this, here's the invitation. You can live your intuitively lived life. It's really fun. It's like what Nicole and I are talking about. And most of the time, the response is, oh, that makes me nervous, or that feels scary to me. So I got curious about the scary. And when I tuned in there, I was like, well, of course, because for so long we have been told that our intuition is woo-woo stuff, or it's not to be trusted. It's not allowed here. It's not aligned with business. You know, you can't create a life where you're following your intuition. Like, obviously you can, because you and I have done that, and we invite other women to do that. But I also recognized, I was like, okay, I need to pause and really listen to what the women are telling me.
Yeah.
And so now what I'm exploring and what I have been teaching is, okay, so how do we create safety in our body? How do we actually connect with our nervous system? What are the tools that you can use to literally calm down? Because if you're really elevated, you can't hear your intuition. It's really difficult to hear the messages.
Yeah.
And I have this great desire, Nicole. I just want all the women of the world to just feel like they can relax.
Yeah. Well, one of the wonderful, wonderful psychics I've worked with, her name is Isabel Gatherer. I didn't know. I was like, how do I tap into this intuition thing? What does it feel like? Tell me, help me, you know. So for any woman who doesn't know what intuition is and wonders whether it's ego, you know, and if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's kind of like your mind chatter, it's fear-based. She gave me a really great way of knowing. And that basically is if it's quick, if it's like, bam, it's just like a hit, that's your intuition. If there's a storyline, this and that and this and that and that, and that's your ego, right? And I'm going to share this story. This is actually very vulnerable to share. I can't believe I'm going to share it, but I'm so in the moment right now of wanting to empower women to step into that next level self. So I shared with you earlier on, I was making $200,000 a year. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings. I mean, we had it all. Okay. But just recently I said to my husband, so now I've gone through all the things, right? We've drained savings to keep the business going. And, you know, he went back to work and we've done all the things. Okay. But I just said to him, we are being asked to burn down our old life. And he said, what? I said, yep. I'm sorry, honey. That's the nudge that I got is all the money we had from our old life. We're being asked to get rid of it so we can rebuild the new through a new way. And he was like, okay, I trust you, honey. So It's scary. When you were talking about scary, I said, "Yeah, it's scary." And you know the other intuition I had? He thought I was absolutely nuts, but once again, he trusted me. 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, I said to him, "Honey, I got a hit from spirit. The stock market's gonna crash. I'm pulling all the money out and sticking it in our savings." And I did. And guess what? It crashed yesterday. So could I be like, "Oh, I'm this amazing person"? No, I just followed my intuition. Are you always gonna be right? Not really. But guess what? I was right. And I'm often right when I'm given something and I trust it.
Yeah.
If it's something that's intuitive, that you really know came from spirit, you can trust it. You can
Yeah.
trust it.
Yeah. Because it's impossible for your intuition to lie to you.
Yes,
It's
yes, because
literally impossible. So if you receive a message, even if you don't understand it, just understand that it is universal truth.
yes, yes,
But that's a muscle we need to build, is to trust that voice. This is one of the things that the women in the Big Life Magic Maker community tell me when I say, so how are you now? Like, you've been in the membership community for a year. Share with me your experience. And these are the kind of things that they're saying. I trust myself now. I've got
mhm,
confidence in myself. Like, I was expecting to hear things like, oh, I'm really good at my intuition, but it's not actually about needing that. It's about this inner trust and inner knowing. And then just starting to understand that that is actually all that you need. And everything else is going to pave its way
yes,
for you.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you trust, faith and trust. There's an episode, I can't remember which one, Miranda and I were on because she was interviewing me for my articles in Sovereign, and, I was like, "If we say faith and trust one more time, I'm going to laugh," because that truly is what it is that there's this sense of surrender. So for me, everybody else might have a different definition, but for me, surrendering is not just this leaning back and everything's going to come to me. Surrendering for me means that I am trusting whatever is happening. Um, to me. And in one of those episodes, I give a couple of examples of what was happening in my life. We were going through a remodel and the check was delayed, and I connected into the people. And I said, "Thank you for processing the check. We had had a leak in our house and the floors were getting redone." I'm like, "Thank you for processing this check on time." You can use energy within you to communicate with other people and help shift the energy around something. And I think that when we realize how powerful we are as beings and we
Mm.
trust in ourselves, we trust in others, even if something is not going our way. I often say to myself, like if somebody cuts me off and I get irritated, I'm sending you love. I trust your highest timeline because your timeline's not my timeline. Even though I
Yeah.
want you to do my thing, I trust your timeline. I trust my timeline. This is happening for me. It's a whole new way of looking at life because I feel like before when I was in the nursing world, I lived a life in anger. I was really
Yeah.
angry all the time,
Yeah.
just trying to control so much. And now I don't feel like I need to control. I get to live and be
Mm.
and exist.
Mm.
And, I was chatting with another woman this week and she said, "I help women learn how to exist." And I said, that is really profound because how many of us are running through our days just to get to the next day or to get to sleep or to accomplish something? Are we
Yeah.
truly living?
Yeah.
And I would say most of us are no, we're on autopilot, we're multitasking, we're running here and there. I just, this whole frenetic energy, and like going back to you saying about being scared, I think
Mm.
many of us are in that frenetic energy because we're chasing something because we're scared of something. What are we scared of? And I had to say to my husband at some point, "Honey, might have to sell the house and live in our cars." Like, that's how dedicated I was. Of course, that didn't happen, but that's how dedicated I was to what I believed. We own our cars. I said, we all, oh, we'll always have a place to live. But that's how it's not a word, not scared I was, if you will. I wasn't fearful anymore. I wasn't fearful of anything. We'll always have food. We'll always have a place to live. We've got camping gear. We can go camping, honey. Like that's where I have gotten to. But I never had to get there. A beautiful woman, actually out of Australia, Michelle Simmons, she's a medium and a coach. She said to me, let's go there, Nicole. Let's face your fears. Okay, let's burn up all the money. The money's gone. What do you do now? It's gone. When you think about it, most of I think the saying is like 99% of our thoughts never happen or something like that, right? Our thoughts are really fear-based. So the things you're actually scared about most likely won't happen. Maybe a variation of it, but that exact thing might not happen. So face your fears. Face what you're scared about. Because in reality, the other life that you're wishing for is so much more beautiful and worth it.
Yeah, and it's waiting for you.
Yes,
It's
claim
right
it,
there.
grab it,
It's
claim
right
it.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to just share that when you bring up surrender, I have a deep relationship with surrender. My book is a series of surrenders when I was surrendering into my grief journey. And what I'm exploring now is my next exploration, which it kind of shifts. Is it a book, or is it the oracle card deck I want to create, or is it both, which is surrendering to magic? Because this is exactly what you were saying. Like, how do we as women relax and surrender into, I'm going to be supported, I am going to be led, we can create this different world. How can we surrender into that? And surrender not being giving up, but letting go and allowing. So I want to just highlight that surrender because, again, my friend, September 2025, when I am the cover of the Sovereign magazine, I'm so delighted I cannot wait, Nicole. The theme is surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful that we arrived there.
Yes.
So I'm going to make sure that everybody has all of the links, Nicole, because there is the Sovereign magazine, there's the Sovereign podcast, there's also extra resources around working with the moon, there's all of the women that you feature that people can connect to. So I'm going to make sure everybody has all of that information. Is there any particular way that you want to invite people to connect with you or with Sovereign?
Well, anybody wanting to be featured can book in a call with me. It's on our website, www.sovereign-magazine.com/get-featured, or just go on the website and click on Get Featured. So anyone can book in a call. They're 30-minute calls, often last longer because I'm a talker and a listener. I'm a really good listener. So we often chat long. So if you're interested in being featured and having a call with me, you will not see me. You'll hear me, but you will not see me. Or, just become part of the communities. We have two communities. Being in the Sovereign community is free, 100%. So you can go on and read all the beautiful women's magazines. And there's also what you mentioned, the Moon community, which is called the Self-Sovereignty Moon Collective, where you can start tapping into your self-sovereignty and your power through working with the moon. So there's that. And we have our podcast, as you said. And in the Self-Sovereignty Moon Collective actually is our moon rituals and stuff. So that's wonderful. Miranda Murphy Gall is our podcast host and our moon mentor who does all of that. She's a wonderful woman from the UK. So lots of wonderful free resources. That's very important to me, that everything is very accessible for everyone. So check it out.
Yes, please, everybody. I am so delighted to be a member of the Sovereign community. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing these beautiful stories, and what an invitation. And I just want to say, women listening, you can birth whatever life you want.
Yes.
Breathe that in now.
Yes.
So every episode of You Are the Magic is dedicated because I do believe in sharing gratitude and sending those ripples of appreciation out into the world. And as our esteemed guest today, Nicole, the dedication is yours to give.
I'm actually going to dedicate it to somebody who's passed over. It is my nana on my father's side because she was a woman who was silenced.
Mm.
And I feel like I am severing those generational ties for her. She was that woman who was in the kitchen and made sure that everything was exactly how she was told it was to be. So I'm doing this for her and all the women who have been silenced at some point in their life.
Do you want to share her name?
Her name was Margaret Gertrude, but we called her Peggy.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yes.
Blessings.
Yes. Yes.
So women connecting and listening now, who is a woman who you want to send some gratitude, grace, and appreciation to, who were before you, who created the space for you, or who you wish did have a different experience? Because we can send some energy to that beautiful spirit now and
Yes.
also receive for yourself. There are women before us who have paved the way for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want me to give another example? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, to be honest with you, I feel like Miranda Murphy Gall, our podcast host, is somebody that I would love to give a bunch of gratitude to. So, for those who don't know, Miranda is also a shaman, a breath worker, a yoga instructor. She is an amazing soul. And she really helps sovereigns stay grounded. She helps me stay grounded. We do a lot of energy work together. We have big visions together. And she has just been an amazing soul. She has gone through a lot in her life, and I appreciate all of that experience because I haven't. I've had a pretty boring life. I mean, I've had my things, of course, but she's just one of those souls that has lived a lot, and I appreciate her and her gratitude and dedication to Sovereign.
Mm. Blessings, blessings, blessings to all of the women connected to You Are the Magic, to Big Life Magic, to Sovereign, to myself, to Nicole, to all of the women in ancestral lines and those present with us now, and to the women who we will be the
Yes.
guides for.
Yes.
What an absolute delight, Nicole. Thank you so much. What a special episode. Women, you are
Mm,
it. You've got it.
yeah.
Believe it to be true because it is absolutely true that it's you. You are the magic. Thank you for sharing your time and your magic with me in the latest episode of You Are the Magic. I invite you now to stay connected to that magic within you. You may choose to connect via a tune. It's a 5-day audio activation that's going to connect you to your intuition and then turn the volume of that inner guidance system up. You may also choose to become a member of the Big Life Magic Makers. It's our virtual community for women who are saying, yeah, I'm freaking magical and I want to be hanging out with some soul sisters who not only believe in their magic, but are supporting each other to activate it. There's so many ways you can support your magic today with your intuition through community by connecting to me, and I invite you to choose you and your magic now. If this episode or any of these episodes have supported you in any way, I would love your support by sharing a review on the platform that you are listening or watching on. It really helps me to get this podcast into more ears and more hearts so we can claim it as women. We are freaking magical and we are going to activate our magic to create the changes in the world that are moving us towards more love, abundance, prosperity, and joy. Breathe it in, believe it to be true. And to you, my friend, you are the magic.